This is the ADO Air 28, a bit of a love child if the parents were a Dutch cruiser and a city commuter. So, is it possible to get both a comfy cruiser that also has the capability of a city commuter? Stick around and let's find out. Hey there friends, and welcome to Electric Bike Report. I'm Mike East, and before we jump into the details of the ADO Air 28, if your partner rolls their eyes every time a new bike gadget arrives in the mail, you're in good company. So go ahead, like this video, and while you're here, subscribe to your tribe. Okay, on to the good stuff. As you've probably already noticed, the Air 28 takes a different approach to battery placement. Here, rather than bolting the battery to the frame or trying to hide it in the frame, the bike's seat post lives a bit of a double agent life as the battery. This not only offers a practical way to insert and remove the battery, but also gives the bike a more balanced feel in the handling department. But we also found it gives a slight trade-off in comfort department as well, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Another thing that sets this bike apart is the Gates carbon belt drive. It's quiet, smooth, and according to ADO, it'll last a whopping 18,600 miles before needing a checkup. And this bike has a single speed setup with a 58-tooth chainring up front with a 20-tooth cog in the rear that we found, even without motor assistance, still gives practical real-world pedaling. And when it comes to e-bikes, the elephant in the room is always the bike's weight. But the Air 28 nails it, coming in at just 43 pounds without the battery and 50 with it. This is much more manageable, especially if you're lugging it upstairs, lifting it onto racks, or squeezing it into tight areas. So, with those key highlights aside, let's get into the nitty-gritty details of what makes the Air 28 tick. The Air 28 comes in two configurations, a European version with a 250-watt motor and the international version with a 500-watt motor and a throttle. Today, we're testing the international version. Both use a torque sensor, which gives a more natural pedal assist than a cadence sensor. The harder you pedal, the more power you get from the motor. And while the motor isn't crazy powerful, that torque sensor makes it engage smoothly, and overall it feels like riding a traditional bike, except you're not sweating through your clothes when you get to work. Now, in full disclosure, I did notice the ADO website had a few discrepancies of what's listed for specs, so just know that I'm going to stick to the details of the bike we were sent, and we've been told that this is what to expect on the international version. The Air 28's battery uses a 36-volt 9.6 amp hour Samsung battery, and while this is on the smaller side, we found it gave us pretty solid range, as you'll see later in the range test. The brakes on the ADO Air 28 are unbranded hydraulic disc brakes paired to 160mm rotors. And when it comes to suspension, the Air 28 has a spring fork up front that has a lockout feature, and you can adjust compression levels to your liking with the dial on the left-hand side of the fork. And while this bike only comes in one frame size, ADO claims it will fit riders at sized between 5'3" and 6'11", which is a really big range, and it's hard to test on our end. But I'm 5'11", and I found it to fit good. And then I went and found the tallest person in our office, Matthew, who towers over me at 6'5", and he took the Air 28 for a spin, and he found it to be comfortable with a slight adjustment to the seat and handlebar heights, which are both easily adjustable. And when it comes to colors, ADO offers the Air 28 in three options: gray, which you see here, and then there's also a light yellow and blue. Up in the cockpit, starting on the left, is a controller where you power on the display and have your pedal assist buttons. In the center is the 3.5-inch color LCD display, and on the right is a grip throttle with electric horn. From a visual standpoint, the Air 28 might have the looks of a cruiser, but it definitely has some of the capabilities of a commuter, with perks like front and rear color-matched metal fenders, an LED headlight, a rear rack rated for 55 pounds, and bag bars. ADO also has a mobile app in both iOS and Android, which allows you to adjust settings in the bike that we found could conduct over-the-air updates as well, which was really cool. Okay, with that quick overview out of the way, let's jump into the testing data that we got on the ADO Air 28 and see how this bike performed. All right, to give you accurate data on brakes, we use a consistent approach for every bike we review. We have the same rider conduct a brake test by accelerating the bike to 20 miles an hour, applying the brakes at a predetermined line, and then we measure the distance needed for the bike to come to a complete stop. And to ensure accuracy, we repeat this test 3 times and then get the average stopping distance from the 3 runs. The Air 28 scored a solid average stopping distance of 22 feet 9 inches, which falls right in line with bikes of this class when equipped with hydraulic disc brakes and 160mm rotors. From what we see here at EBR with testing so many bikes, hydraulic disc brakes and 160mm rotors do a good job stopping these lighter bikes. Now, since these brakes are unbranded, we can't speak to longevity, but in our nearly 100 miles of riding this past week, the brakes performed well every time we asked them to. Overall, the ADO Air 28's brakes performance left us satisfied. And with that, let's move on to the speed test. Before we jump into the speed test, it's worth noting, in the ADO app you can switch between 3 or 5 levels of pedal assist, and we chose the 3 levels for our speed test. So with that out of the way, let's head out and see how the Air 28 did on our speed test.
All right, this is the speed test for the ADO Air 28. And I'm just starting off with no pedal assist, and I'm doing just a relaxed pedaling cadence right here. And it looks like that's gonna level out at around 7.8 miles an hour. So let's kick on pedal assist 1 and see what we get. Oh, 7.9. All right, on to level 1. And I can feel the motor just a bit engage in the pedals. And it looks like we've picked up to about 9.5 peaking. And I'm gonna bump it up to level 2 here. And I can definitely feel that one. The motor on this is actually very quiet, but you can feel the assistance, which is nice. And that looks like it's going to peak at somewhere .1. I think I saw it hit. So now let's go up to the final level 3 and see what we get. And I am going to pick up my pedaling speed just a bit because this is a single speed bike where I can't be shifting to higher or lower gears to accommodate. And so picking up the speed just a little bit here in PAS 3, we are reaching speeds of about I think I saw 19.2, 20, 20.2. Yeah, 20.2 is going to be the max there. And then if I throttle it, we definitely will go over 20. So there you go, speed test of the ADO. All right, this is the throttle test of the Air 28. I'm gonna be at a dead stop here, and I'm just gonna throttle it and see how long it takes to get to 20 miles an hour. Just a small caveat, because this is a torque sensor, I will need to pedal at least that first rotation just so it does initiate the throttle. Otherwise, we'll just sit here and do nothing. So with that said, on your mark, get set, go. And there it is, I can feel it kick on. And we are at 20 right there. So that wraps up the throttle test.
So, to recap those results, starting off, I don't use any pedal assist and just pedal at a casual pace like you'd expect on a cruiser. Here, my speed averaged around 7.9 miles per hour. Moving up to pedal assist level 1, the bike reached 9.5 miles an hour, which was a slight boost from my natural pace. Then I bumped it up to PAS 2, where I reached a speed of 13.1 miles an hour, and I found that to be a good cruising speed. And finally, at PAS level 3, the highest level, we saw a top speed of 20.2 miles an hour. So, as you can see, these results tell us the bike's pedal assist power distribution is fairly even across all 3 levels, with the biggest jump being between PAS 2 and 3. I also found this 500 watt motor to be more relaxed in its acceleration than we expected, but that falls in line with this laid-back cruiser vibes. Overall, speed was good across each level. We saw speeds reaching 20 miles an hour, and we think this result is pretty good. So, on to the range test. E-bike companies love to advertise exciting range expectations, and estimations are all well and good, but it's out there on the road where the rubber meets you guessed it, the road. So, the folks over at ADO gave a general range estimation of 100 kilometers, which over here on our side of the pond equates to 60 miles. So, it's time to put those range claims to the test. To truly gauge what this bike can handle, we put it through its paces not once, but twice. First up, we ride it on the minimum of pedal assist, PAS1, where we rode until the battery completely runs dry. Then, after a full recharge, we crank it up to the highest PAS level 3 and go ride again until the battery finally gives up. In our test, PAS1 found it fell short of the claimed range by just 3 miles as we managed to get 57 miles spanning a whopping 5 hours and 16 minutes. That is a lot of riding. ADO does not offer a maximum PAS3 range estimation, but because we do what we do, we took it out in PAS3 and still managed to cover 25.6 miles, spanning 1 hour and 57 minutes. Again, that's pretty good considering the smaller 36-volt battery. So, what's the takeaway? The ADO Air 28 really did live up to its range claims if you give it a little wiggle room for testing variables. This has a torque sensor, which means how hard you ride might be the biggest variable. And both our speed tests had pretty mellow paces of 10.7 and 13.1 miles per hour respectively. So if you're a speedier rider, the results will drop a bit, but overall for a smaller 350 watt-hour battery with a 500 watt motor, this was a good result. All right, on to the hill test. Heading into our hill test, we once again used our same tester, Justin, who took the Air 28 up our local beast of a hill that the locals have affectionately named Hellhole. It's a third of a mile and has over a 12% grade. Put it this way, if you're not on an e-bike, you're likely walking your bike up this hill.
Okay, so we're on the ADO Air and doing the throttle test. I don't think it's gonna make it. I'm already down to 6, 5, 4, 3, it's like you count down 2, let me shimmy a little bit, no way, 1, done. So did not make it very far on the throttle. Let's turn around and see how it does on the pedal. Okay, so we're back now on the ADO Air PAS5 on the pedal test. Single gear belt drive, which can cause some problems sometimes on these things. So let's see how it does. On your left, thanks. So I'm definitely having to push a bit here to get up. I may have to stand up just a little. Down to 7, 6. I think I'll make it up, but I might have to stand up here. 5. Maybe not. So down to 5 miles per hour. Stand up just a little bit here. Okay, so made it through that section. Motor's quiet. It is giving me output, but not a ton. It's more that ladder weight city commuter. And with that single gear, it does make it just a little bit tougher on this. So through this section here, I'm gonna stand and let you listen to the motor. So if you stand, it's not too bad. We got down to 5, 6 miles an hour again. So this will make it up Hellhole. Which, again, on pedal, most bikes make it up, almost all of them. This is gonna be one of the slower ones. I would say if you're somebody really worried about pedaling up a hill, you're gonna want something a little more powerful, but we'll see how it does when you're just kind of cruising around and going up and down normal hills. This one is pretty extreme. So we'll go to the tape and see what the time is.
As you can see, Justin was not successful in making it up the hill on throttle only. But to be fair, a 500 watt peak motor, 42 newton meters of torque, and only a 36 volt system isn't the type of bike you expect a lot from when it comes to hills like this. On the other hand, when it came to pedal assist 3 in our hill test, the Air 28 made it up the hill with the help of Justin standing on the pedals to help get it there, but it got there in a time of 2 minutes and 8 seconds. This falls on the slower end of bikes we've tested, but again, this hill's not your average hill, and any bike that makes it up is a good sign. With that said, if you live in an area with lots of hills, you may want to check other options with a higher torque rating. But for most areas with minimal elevation changes, the ADO should still be a solid choice. In our final ride, let's take a look at how the ADO rides and feels. We'll chat about the riding position, overall fit, the tires, and how the motor feels when pedaling. Then we'll head back in here and wrap this up.
All right, this is a Dutch style cruiser bike, but it's also got a lot of characteristics of a city commuter. Things like the front and rear fenders, the LED headlight up front, and then a rear rack and bag bars on the rear end as well. Up front in the handlebar here, we have a swept back design that can be adjusted right here where the stem grips the bar, and then also down below where the stem angle can be adjusted. Down below, the bike does have suspension. It has a front coil fork, or front spring fork, excuse me, with a lockout option, and you can adjust the level of compression on the dial on the left. All in all, day-to-day riding, because the bike has an upright riding position that gives you a wide field of view, most of your body weight is centered on the seat post and not so much on the handlebars. I don't really have a lot of weight down on these handlebars, so I don't feel the front shock on day-to-day riding. You might notice the vibrations from the road imperfections here on this path, but this fork really does shine when dropping off of things like curbs or going over speed bumps, potholes. That's when you really do feel the front fork do its job. Down below, we have Chaoyang 26-inch by 1.95-inch tires. They have a semi-slick tread pattern, and I put about 70 to 80 miles on the bike this week in both dry conditions and wet conditions and rainy conditions. I kind of got the whole gamut of weather this week, and I found the tires to be really nice. They were low road noise, low friction, resistance on the road. It felt really good. They rolled well. And then obviously traction and grip was always good, even in wet conditions and cornering in wet conditions. So that's always nice to see. The motor itself is activated by a torque sensor, and a torque sensor will basically provide the pedal assist based on the feedback you're giving the pedal. So the harder I pedal, the more boost I get in assistance. The lighter I pedal, the lighter the boost is. And I noticed that this motor is very subtle and it kind of feels pretty natural, and I think that's a testament to the torque sensor's design. And I think overall it does a really good job of providing assistance without ever getting jerky or jumpy off the jump like maybe a cadence sensor would. So it does a good job there. All in all, I've enjoyed riding the bike this week. It rides really nice. And so we'll head back into the studio and we will wrap this up.
So, as you just saw, the bike's cruiser design gives a nice upright position. With the 3.5-inch LCD display that's full color, has great contrast even in direct sunlight. The seat post acting as a battery is a unique design that frankly we think looks great. But as mentioned earlier, it's more stiff than a traditional seat post, which does flex and absorb some of the road impacts. But fortunately, a seat is one of the easiest things to swap for something else more to your liking if you wanted to. The rear end sports pannier bag bars and an integrated rear rack that carries a hefty weight limit of 55 pounds. And up front, an LED headlight finishes off the commuter perks. The bike's real hero of the drivetrain is the torque sensor motor activation. It does a solid job of feeling more natural with pedal assistance than a cadence sensor typically does. When I gave the pedals a little more pressure to speed up, I would feel a subtle boost in assistance, but nothing jumpy or jerky, which is a testament to a good torque sensor. Okay, we've covered a lot here. So what's all this mean, and what's our overall thoughts on the bike? All in all, ADO seems to have a solid start with the ADO Air 28, and we're interested to see where the brand and this model go from here. Its electrical system offers a mellow and clean ride that's easy to operate. It's a little light on power, so it won't be what you want going up the hills of San Francisco. But if your locale is mostly flat, I could see you enjoying the easy ride along with a very nice lightweight 50 pounds of the bike. It's much more manageable than a lot of heavy cruisers. The seat post battery put the weight in a place that made for nice handling characteristics on the ride. But it's more stiff than most, so maybe a more comfy seat would be worth the upgrade. But more importantly than what I think, What do you think? Tell us what you think down below in the comments, and click the link to see the current pricing. So that's it for today here at Electric Bike Report. I'm Mike, and if you're still watching, prove it by telling us your favorite part about the ADO Air 28 down in the comments. Until then, we'll see you out there on the trail.